are the Nitro Warriors, the top guns of the quarter mile.
Yeah, Nitro is addictive, very addictive.
Is it ever? There's nothing in the world like Nitro.
Even though it burns our nose and we can't breathe, we love it.
Hello everyone, I'm Big Daddy Don Garland.
And I'm Kenny Youngblood.
And welcome to the Museum of Drag Racing.
We're here to bring you the very best in drag racing entertainment.
And this episode of Nitro Warriors is called Cackling Pipes.
Well, this is a special show because this is for you, the hardcore fans that love the smell of nitro in the morning and the sight of a funny car thumping up to the starting line. We're going to go back to the 80s, to that golden era of drag racing with dry hops and all. Raymond Beadle, the Blue Max, Chi-Town Hustler, Chuck Etchells, the hardcore guys. We'll be back with Cackling Pipes after the break.
Stay tuned.
That's John Force in his Castrol GTX funny car, finishing his burnout in preparation for a pass down the quarter mile. So what's it like to race a funny car? Here's racer Gary Litton.
Nitro Funny Car to me is a short fuse stick of dynamite. Like riding a bobsled off of a real slick, iced over a hill, totally out of control. Your mind is behind you, your body's out in front of you.
And they're underway.
Imagine sitting in your living room chair in less than 1 second, having your living room chair move with you in it 60 feet across the room. Nitro burning funny car is loud. It's awesome. It's the highest horsepower internal combustion engine known to man. Sitting 5 feet in front of your face waiting to explode.
We're talking cars on straight nitro, doing dry hops. It doesn't get any better than this.
Oh, I tell you, that was an exciting time. I love the way they used to. You know, today they just do a burnout, come back and go up to the line and go. In the old days, they would do 2 or 3 dry hops before they ever, and they were actually playing that like in tune with each other. One would do a hop and the other would do one. It was an exciting time.
Final preparations are made for the Bristol Funny Car Shootout. Yes, these nitro-burning funny cars have a voice all their own. That's why we call this show Cackling Pipes. So we're going to shut up and let the cars do the talking. 8 of the fiercest competitors of the day are ready to fire them up.
Okay, Pete.
Now the first pair here is East Coast veteran Jerry Caminito, and he's going to be up against Bob Gilbertson. There's Jerry's wife Marion looking on. Everybody's a little anxious here because there's $50,000 up at this Bristol Funny Car Shootout to the winner of this event. So these guys are serious. They want to get after it. Jerry Caminito's Blue Thunder car over there in the left lane. Of course, Bob Gilbertson in the right lane. Caminito pulls away, collects a 582 elapsed time at 256 miles an hour for the funny car win there in first round. The next pair of cars coming up is Steve Litton, that's Gary Litton's son, in the Tennessee Shaker. Now, there's two Tennessee Shaker cars here. You're not seeing double. Gary, his dad, owns one and drives it, and Steve is in the second car. His opponent, Bobby Boom Boom Lagana, in the Twilight Zone car. Of course, Bobby runs up a lot out of the Englishtown area, Raceway Park, while the Tennessee Shaker, well, this is a local favorite because we're here at Bristol for this Funny Car Shootout. And Lagana takes the win. Nitro Warriors with Cackling Pipes will be back right after this break.
Stay tuned.
Funny Car basically is a Nitro dragster. It has the same tube chassis as a dragster, but it's a shorter wheelbase. And we put a body on top of the chassis to give it some resemblance to a car, a regular street car, a Pontiac, Oldsmobile, or whatever. People can relate better to a funny car because it looks like something similar to what they're driving. We put a very high horsepower aftermarket aluminum Chrysler engine in them, and we put a direct drive transmission in them and put nitromethane in them, which gives them about 4,000 horsepower. Now we have to control that horsepower and put it to the ground. A burnout is when the race car driver is guided into the groove of the racetrack. He rides through some water so that the tires get a little wet. He presses down on the accelerator pedal so that the tires spin and grow and smoke and get very hot. And it also helps make the groove in the racetrack.
You try and do them nice and straight. You lay down 2 good tracks of rubber, and that's the track of rubber you want to be in going down that racetrack. If you can stay in that track of rubber, your chances of winning the race is very good.
A funny car could be a very dangerous animal. The first round at Bristol, the car hydraulic the cylinder head, oil got under the tire, the car exploded, caught on fire. Richard drove the car to the end of the track, it crashed into the guardrail and totally destroyed itself. That was one pass, and we went from a complete funny car to no funny car. These cars are very costly, and that was very costly to us because we lost the entire race car.
It doesn't look like it here as he puts on a brand new fire suit, but the legendary Raymond Beadle exemplified the down and dirty nature of funny car racing in the 80s. Donning the traditional and nasty-looking breather mask, Raymond gets ready for another run in the Blue Max as waterbed Fred Miller drops the body. Raymond Beadle in the Blue Max. He was the Darth Vader of his time. Nobody wanted to face the Max. During the 80s, the Force was with him. Of course, the infamous Blue Max funny cars. And big, I see you've got one of Raymond's cars here. He was quite the star back then, wasn't he?
Boy, I'll tell you, he was quite the star. He impressed me. He won one of the most professional racing operations I've ever seen, especially in funny car. And you know, he really put the professional touch on it. He made a statement one time that I've used many times, and I think it's really a very good statement for drag racing. He said, "I'd rather be lucky than fast."
He also said that if the money holds, the luck will change.
That's exactly right. And those two statements kind of went together. And I think that epitomized Raymond Beadle's career. He wasn't laid back. That was just a facade that he would put on to get the competitors lulled into complacency. You know, funny cars were running in the high fives back there in the 80s, and Raymond Beadle was asked where did he think the funny cars were going.
Oh, I mean, I'd be a fool to say, I guess, because I mean, I can remember when we thought the 250 was the magic number. I remember when 260 was the magic number. Now we're approaching 270s. Same with ETs. You know, a 540 was something that was unheard of, or a 550. Now we've seen a random amount of those. So I guess the sky's the limit. I don't know.
On the end of Funny Car Row here in the museum is one of the Chi-Town hustlers. I say one of them because Austin Coyle, John Farconis, and Pat Minnick ran these cars starting in the late 60s and had quite a few of the cars.
Well, they were really famous, you know, for showmanship too. They were the first that made the big long burnouts, went halfway down the track, 3/4 of the way down these burnouts. And it was actually Austin Coyle wanting to get the tires good and hot because he'd found out that if the tires were hot, the cars really stuck. And you know, the funny car didn't have the weight on the rear wheels like the dragsters did, so you had to get all the traction you could get, and this was one of the tricks. And of course, Austin Coyle had the engine tune that it didn't overheat during these long burnouts, so he was getting away with it. A lot of guys didn't know what he was doing. And you could tell, usually he didn't have a lot of flames coming out of the pipes during all of the maneuvering around in the burnout area, and the other guys had these flames and they were too lean, and that's why they couldn't get away with that and Coyle could.
So that crafty old Austin Coyle, there was usually a method to his madness then.
It certainly was. He was very smart, and they tell you what, you had to get up real early in the morning to put one over on Coyle.
Right, and of course back in those days, with the Chi-Town Hustler car especially, they did a lot more match racing than they did national event racing. Just listen to the sound of these nasty dry hops. The crew chief in the blue shirt is the notorious Austin Coyle, guiding Frank Hawley into the beams at the 81 Summer National. The Chi-Town Hustler just stands alone in the funny car ranks, and certainly because of the tuner Austin Coyle. You're a tuner and certainly an innovator. Where do you put Austin Coyle in the lineup of crew chiefs?
Ha! Boy, I'll tell you, Austin Coyle, number one, numero uno, the big kahuna. It's the only way you can describe Austin Coyle, because I remember when he had the Chi-Town Hustler, and all the time, him and I were pretty close. He was always coming up with these little trick things that nobody else was thinking of. Some of the stuff they wouldn't even allow you to do today. But you know, innovation has kind of been stifled. But back then you could do most anything you want. I remember him making special fuel blocks with pistons that moved inside of them to change the fuel flow. Unbelievable stuff that nobody ever thought. The man is a walking genius.
Yes, he is, and every crew chief has down days and ups and downs, but it always seems like Austin's able to bounce back a lot quicker than most crew chiefs.
Coyle is so smart that he's usually able to get a handle on it pretty quick, and usually before the race is over.
Nitro Warriors with Cackling Pipes will be back right after this message.
Stay tuned. They were showmen. The racing was secondary to them. The real money was out there going from track to track on Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday night, putting on a show. And that's where they took the dragsters and beat them up really bad. The funny cars definitely put on more show than the dragsters. We were just pure racers wanting to win a race. Funny cars, they didn't care about winning races. I mean, not really. They were there to put on a show. And brother, they put one on. You've just seen some of it.
Back at Bristol for more first-round funny car action, it'll be Richard Hartman and Nicky Bonafanti's Ray Besta's car up against Chuck Etchells. They work on these cars for hours in the pits, but there's always some last-minute adjustments made just as they start the car. Little Nicky gives Richard the thumbs up and heads for the burnout box. Body comes up on the Ray Besta's car as they engage the second magneto, and yeah, nitromethane affects all the senses. Besta's car overpowers the track and Etchells takes the win. The next pair, Freddie Neely, a rookie. This is his first season in the Forever Young funny car, and he's going to be up against the other Tennessee shaker, Gary Litton at the controls, a private detective who really likes to mash the pedal. New boy Freddie Neely takes the win. Back with more Cackling Pipes.
Stay tuned.
I'm Bruce Larson. This is the chassis of my Century Tax and Gauges Oldsmobile funny car. A funny car has a 4,000 horsepower engine sitting right in the middle of it before the driver. The real secret to the 4,000 horsepower is the nitromethane in this tank. In this tank we have 15 gallons of nitromethane. Each run we burn about 9 gallons of nitromethane in a quarter mile.
We're using 1.5 inches of line out of each fuel tank, going to each line feeds each fuel pump. The fire bottles at the front of the car, they extinguish a fire in case you have a fire on board going down track, which is triggered on the brake handle is a lever. You pull that, which we hope we never have a fire on board to activate the fire bottles, but you never know when you get in that situation.
Moving back a little farther behind the fuel tank, we have a box here that's full of our power source for some of the electronic gear on the car. We use timers to control some of the clutch functions. It takes a lot of work away from the driver, and at this point the driver needs to pay attention to everything he can do going down the track in 5.2 seconds. Behind that we have a box full of more controls for the clutch. Then we get into the fuel system. The engine has 2 fuel pumps. It has a port fuel pump on the right side, a hat fuel pump, this is the injector hat, on the left side. Got a big belt here that drives the 1471 blower. The blower probably takes 1,000 horsepower away from the engine to turn it and gives us back twice that much. When these throttle valves open, they're being fed by each of these 2 fuel pumps, 28 gallons per minute. Then over here we have 2 magnetos. We use dual spark plugs, kind of taken away from what they do with aircraft. It fires the mixture a lot more thoroughly than one spark plug did in the old days. Behind the engine we have a titanium bell housing which contains a 4-disc centrifugal clutch. No clutch pedal is really required. When the engine RPMs come up, the car leaves. The tuning of the clutch is really essential to gearing the car to different track conditions. It's probably more important at this point with a funny car than engine tuning is.
If you hadn't got the clutch system down, it don't make no difference how much horsepower you putting out. This is where it's at.
The clutch has some compressed air controls, some electronic controls, and it's quite a masterpiece of technology.
You got your steering wheel here, you drive the car wheel. You got your fuel shut off, did you shut your fuel off and on wheel. You got your high-low valve. When you stage your car up, you move your high-low valve. We got the brake handle is right here, and as we was talking about the fire bottles before, here's the lever that triggers the fire bottles in case you do have a fire.
The driver controls all of the electronic functions by turning this switch on after a burnout.
Here's the wheelie bars. When you leave, if you got a lot of clutch in the car and the track's really good, the car tends to hook up really good, the car will ride on the wheelie bars to keep the car from getting too high in the air.
We have a 5-layer thick fire suit. We have silver-colored 5-layer thick boots. We have a breather mask built into the helmet, all kinds of Nomex fire protection. It makes it a pretty safe environment even if there is an accidental fire in the car. This is the body from my 4,000 horsepower Nitro Funny Car. In the back we have a spoiler which generates a lot of downforce to hold the back wheels from spinning at 270 miles an hour. There are no windows in the car. The back window is blanked off. We're not watching what we're doing when we're backing up. We have a crew to guide us to the back. We have plexiglass windows on the side of the car. The 6-inch holes are mandated by the NHRA for safety so that in the event of a fire they can direct their attention into the driver with fire extinguishers. We have a large safety hatch. This hatch opens up to let the driver escape if there's an emergency before the crew can get to the body. The body can be lifted right off of the car to get driver access. The crew are really the unsung heroes. They work 24 hours a day for me to get a 5-second ride.
Big, when visitors come to the museum here and they see all these dragsters and then walk by the Jockless Porting Service car, they might wonder if that's a funny car because it's so swoopy and enclosed.
Well, yeah, they might think it's a 2005 or a 2006 funny car, but isn't that the way they're going?
Yes, it is. Jocko was maybe about 30 years ahead of his time because that car looks very contemporary.
Exactly right. In other words, you look at the funny car today and you look at it 20 years ago, I see the Jocko car with a few little modifications as the funny car of, say, 2005, 2006.
You've known Jocko and been involved with him over the years. He's a brilliant man and quite an artist, isn't he?
Those cars were his dream, and the first one was built in 1959 and went 8.35 seconds, which was an unheard of ET. And then when I got the rear engine car all sorted out, he wanted to put one together, and we did the Winds Liner, which was much bigger. The big problem was the fiberglass was just way too heavy. Carbon fiber, it might have been a whole nother deal with a few little tricks and whistles and bells on it there. There's some things about the air that at high speed needed to be done to the car, but the car had a lot of potential if we could have just had the right materials. The technology wasn't there in 1972.
It'd be interesting to see what that original design would do now if it were built in carbon fiber.
Yes, it would. It'd be an exciting project. I don't know why John Force doesn't do it.
It's semifinal action at the Bristol Funny Car Shootout. The pairings will be Chuck Etchells against Jerry Caminito, Bobby Lagana versus Freddie Neely. The starter gives the signal and they fire up. Etchells in the right lane, Caminito in the left. It's a real close race to half track, then Etchells simply outpowers the Blue Thunder for the win. Super smoky burnouts from both cars, the smoke billowing up over the three-story Bristol Tower. Another close race, but Freddie Neely, boy, is he hot. He puts that Forever Young car into the final round against Chuck Etchells. The crew, sure, they're happy. They can smell that 50 grand. You know, Big, the evolution of funny cars is something that we've witnessed just starting in the late 60s when they really were stock cars and then got more modified. What happened next?
Well, you know, they moved some wheels on those early steel-bodied cars and they looked funny, and that's where the actual name came from. Of course, they quickly went to plastic bodies and to what you see today, like the Omni that we're looking at.
I tried to change that name a few times, but it just has always stuck. There will always be funny cars.
There will always be funny cars, and there's no need to try to change that. And they got real radical, you know, some of them, the Batmobile, they called it, was so radical. And even today, I think they're pretty radical with, I call it the pickup bed body stuck up on top of the trunk. They're very radical. They're streamlined pieces. Somebody said they look like an ice cream bar in front of a hair dryer. But they, of course, when they went to the fiberglass bodies, then they could really change things in that mold. And Dale Armstrong and Kenny Bernstein took it to the limits because the rules weren't really very strict back then on the funny car days. But Dale took the rule book to the edge there, and that caused quite a ruckus, so much so that they told him to back off a little bit for a while. And this is Kenny Bernstein's Batmobile, which of course was built by his crew chief, Dale Armstrong, and they had pretty much unlimited ideas that matched the budget. Back with more Cackling Pipes right after this. Stay tuned. We've got another bit of vintage classic footage here. Bruce Larson at Englishtown Raceway in his USA 1 Corvette car. Get back to the final round action in a minute, but first let's take a look at a very famous funny car here on the floor of the museum. Yeah, Bruce Larson's USA 1, it is a famous car. This is really the first funny car that was all plastic that represented a real car that was current, and Bruce made this car by taking copies of an actual Chevelle, a panel at a time, and then gluing the entire thing together and making a car out of it, and then putting all the tin working all inside of it. I mean, the man spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and he had a lot of foresight to see what the potential of this project would be, and it is the forerunner of the funny car as we see it today. And Bruce, of course, a very mild-mannered, soft-spoken man, the epitome of walk softly and carry a big stick. That's exactly right. It was very fast, and he was fearless, and I saw that when he drove my dragster in 1992 and 93. He'd drive right down into those closets, no problem. We know you wouldn't put somebody in that car that didn't have a little no fear in him. That's right. I'd watched Bruce a long time, and I was very impressed with his Century funny car when he won the World Championship. I was doing television then. Saw him make a lot of runs. He's a good driver, and he's very composed. He doesn't get rattled, and this is what you need in a high-speed car. A man that really never got enough acknowledgement. No, he's one of the most underrated drivers that was ever out there. The sun goes down and the flames are up. Freddie Neely, the newcomer, against veteran Chuck Etchells at the Bristol Funny Car Shootout. $50,000 going to the winner of this race. Ah, look at the fire in the pipe.
Etchells has to pedal it, but it's flames up for Freddie Neely all the way through the lights. Runs a 566, 246 miles an hour for the win, and will take home $50,000.
We'll be back with more Cackling Pipes right after this break.
Stay tuned.
What?
I guess I'm one of them fortunate people. You hear people say it all the time, you take a hobby and make a profession out of it. That's what it started me as a hobby. Back in the late 50s, you know, racing around on old ragged tracks and backyards and back roads and stuff. And National Hot Rodders started coming along, so I got in on the bottom floor and helped build something. Now, I was division director for about 15 years. I ran this whole East Coast for 1 year. And when the first horse race they ever had is a National Hot Rod meet here at this racetrack, I was sitting here, didn't even know where the track was at.
What makes you different than any other starter out there? Because you do more than just press a button when you're out there.
Oh, well, I know it looks easy to stand there, but I got good crews. When I go to a race, anywhere I go, I'm going to have pretty good people with me, you know. If I'm not, I'm going to weed them out. They do most of the hard work, but it's just people we train. It's just like you. You're doing your business, you know what to look for, know the shots you need to get. Well, I know from just experience, I just glance at the car and I take in the overall look, see if they're leaking, the safety equipment's there, the belts are fastened, just, you know, everything in general. It just comes as a habit, you know. I can just glance at them and I see things that, you know, just comes from experience, I guess.
What about the camaraderie that you have with the drivers?
Oh, well, that's something that I've built up over the years. They've learned to trust me, and I've learned to trust certain ones of them, you know. Each one of them's different. They all no two the same, you know, and we have a lot of us got a lot of superstitions, little things, and guys, if you don't nod at them or give them a thumbs up or do certain little things, that just upsets them, you know, and if they lose, they blame it on that, you know, and different things. We just have a lot of stuff, and some of the old racers have been with us from word go. We do the same thing, you know, over and over, and it just comes habit, you know, and everybody knows what to do.
Are you the original starter?
No, not really. Well, I'm the original one, I guess you'd say, with electronics deal. But there were two or three, I think, with the National Hot Rod Association at different races, at different parts of the country.
Well, when did the electronics come in? What year was that, the electronics?
64.
So ever since
63 and 64. 64 is when we really started using them. And it was hard for the racers to accept them at first, you know, the way the thing. Well, we had a lot of little things wrong with them, and they didn't like it, you know. They liked the flag. Everybody had their thing. Some of the older racers, you know, they knew the flag men, how to jump the flag start, and how you control it. That's why we brought the electronics in, to take the human error out of it, they say.
Did you shake a flag also in the early days?
Yes, when I was younger. I don't think I could do it now. I got to get my fatty off the ground.